Broadcasting live from conduit pylons on the plain of Thunder Junction, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody, to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham, and joining me is Kathleen.
Yeehaw!
And Cameron.
Huh?
And we're going to talk to you about, first, hands-on impressions of Outlaws of Thunder Junction and some tips that you can keep in mind when you go to your pre-release this coming weekend. We are literally minutes removed from our pre-launch showcase. Cameron ran a round of draft into a 2+ hour commander game into this right now.
Yep, we are coming off of the
Yeah.
PPR.
Yeah, we all played today, but of the three of us
played.
Yeah.
That's why this is straight vodka.
If you want to get yourself some of the cards that you saw us play at the pre-launch showcase, you can do that at our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/LRR, for all your cardboard needs. Tell them we sent you. Ask for a button. They'll give you a little button that says a funny thing. I think we're still on I moved to Newt step, but I could be wrong. And, of course, this show and everything that we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Another brand new option is, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can become a member of this YouTube channel. We turned on memberships for all the YouTube channels in our network. And if you're already supporting us somewhere else, like on Twitch or on Patreon, that's awesome. Thank you. You don't need to move. You certainly don't need to add anything. We just want to open all possible valves for people to support us monetarily if they are so desired. And then because our sort of philosophy is that we don't gate stuff. Everything's just out there for free anyway. So the perks, such as it is, you get like some emotes and stuff, and also once monthly there'll be a shout out end card on this very show, Tap Tap Concede, to thank the folks who are members of the channel. Thanks for that. Holy moly.
No, holy cow.
Sorry, holy cow. Holy cow. Man, holy cow. What a common.
That's such a good card.
It's, what, a 4/2 flash?
No, it's a 2/2 flash.
2/2 flash.
For 3.
For 3. And it gains you 2 life, and it flies, and you scry 1.
Man, remember when this was in blue, but it cost 4?
Yeah, this is
And
this is a
didn't do
great
anything?
card.
Yeah. This is like Windrake's looking so incredibly power crept at this point.
I mean, I was thinking of comparing this to Nephalia Sea Kite.
Oh, yeah. I do like Nephalia Sea Kite. So, yeah, we did, like I mentioned, the pre-launch showcase. Effectively a PPR, but we were like, we should change the name up a little bit because we're not just doing pre-release. We were showing off a variety of formats, and that ended up causing brand confusion with the viewers. But hey, if you haven't checked it out, there's a bunch of different videos up on the channel now where there's some sealed, including a deck build. There's a 6-player draft and a commander game with the pre-con decks. Also, forthcoming, another commander game on the next episode of EDSC with the same 4 pre-con decks, but 4 different players.
And the little sub-game.
Yeah. And yeah, this was... Yeah,
games.
The bounties.
Bounties.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. He says from a position of privilege of getting to cast all of his ridiculous cards.
And then a lot of Cameron's ridiculous
Yeah,
cards.
I understand my deck was quite good.
Yeah, your deck's sweet. I'm glad I got to play one of your turns and also cast your spells.
I say this jokingly. I'm actually
I know.
not. Yeah, I'm not upset at all. I just yeah.
You of all people respect the game of losing to villain as well.
Yes, my favorite card. I'm only like, I wish it was me. I see what you have given to other people, and I wish that for me.
I guess let's touch briefly on. So this is our second set with play boosters, and rather than just also having the list featuring special guests, this has a bonus sheet of one in every pack of the breaking news cards and the big score, which was originally intended as a kind of an aftermath style product. And then admittedly, like Wizards has said this, that like aftermath did not land how they expected, and so they rethought some stuff. And so now there's cards from the big score just in these packs. Mm-hmm. And I think more so than Karlov Manor, you're just seeing more rares and more powerful cards in these packs.
Yeah, we had multiple people open like double mythic packs, which used to be something that was noteworthy enough that we made a joke about it in the first Friday nights. Or you made the joke about it in the first Friday nights.
Oh yeah,
Where James like retires champion after opening a two mythic pack from Scars of Mirrodin.
just from opening the pack and he retires champion.
Yep.
Amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really powerful because you have to remember the breaking news is like your mystical archive, your Eldraine enchantments, your legendary creatures from Dominaria. So it's sort of like hey, here's some stuff. And then it's kind of like all crime based is what the breaking news is. It's all crimes, which makes sense thematically. But then the big score, unlike Aftermath, which had a lot of like random commons, it's like, why is this here?
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, all the Aftermath cards are like rare and up.
All the big scorecards are new and very powerful.
Yeah. So it's just like I might be opening, I could, there's a chance of getting, and because the play boosters already have like possibly you get 2 rares or something like that, you're like looking at like some packs will have like 3 rares in them. They're extremely juiced. It's like it's like a little bit of like without the sort of repetitiveness of like doing collector boosty draft, which we've done a couple of times for just the sheer decadence of it. I think like twice ever. And it's never really worked out, but this is, I think, the best way that you can experience that incredibly rare feeling.
I've got 4 rares and 3 mythics
In your deck?
in my draft deck.
In your draft? Well, I'm an outlier. I've got that I'm running 2, I think.
I mean, as you mentioned in the edited draft video, great work on that from you and Matt, by the way. You were getting pretty heavily cut on a bunch of stuff.
Well, I opened a really good pack of green, and I thought this table's not going to support minimum 3 green drafters, and I don't know what other people are loudly yelling about.
Yeah, Cameron and I were. It was a 6-player draft, so stuff wheels more quickly. But Cameron and I were cross pod, and both ended up in Sultai.
Yeah, I wanted to move into red, and then Ben took. But I was like the only person who was primary white, so I had a lot of gray white. But I was also fighting Wheeler and Ben for the rest of the red cards, and being right next to Ben for red was not great for my deck.
Yeah.
So I got and I didn't really realize I'd be moving into red, kind of like into like pack 2. So it was no bueno. But my deck was okay.
So I mean, I guess sort of practical application for you at home, if you're going to your pre-release, because we did do a sealed build. Serge opened a build or opened a pool on camera, and just opened a lot of rares. So I think more so than before. Now he got lucky and he opened a lot that happened to be sort of in the same kind of colors.
Right.
But more so than before, I think that you're definitely incentivized to just want to play your most powerful stuff, especially in a set like this that has a full cycle of dual lands at common. There's a cycle, I don't think it's all 10, but there's a cycle of dual lands at rare. There's the
fast lands.
The fast lands. Also at common is, I mentioned this one by name, Conduit Pylons, which is like the best Unknown Shores variant that we've seen because it surveils when it enters the battlefield. And then filters.
There's also another desert that you just name the color.
The
Mirage Mesa.
Mirage Mesa, which is ETB tapped. It's whatever color you want it to be. And then of course there's your standard fixing in green. There's no land cycling, which we've seen happen more and more recently. That's fine, but the point is there's a lot of mana fixing. Speaking of mana fixing, Serge opened this in his pool, but you were running it as well.
The Lotus Ring.
No, not the Lotus Ring. That one's spicy and fun. That one's from the big score. But the what's it Hall? The
Manolith. The bag. Yeah.
Something's Hall. Sorry, we're still very new to these cards. Bandit's Hall.
Yeah, Bandit's Hall.
Yeah. So it's a Manolith, which is a 3-mana artifact, taps for any color. But then what else does it do, Cameron?
Well, whenever you commit a crime, you put a loot counter on it, and for 2 mana and tapping it, you may remove 2 loot counters from it to draw a card. And I think I drew 3 or 4 cards from it.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Because you can only crime once per turn, but you can also do it on your opponent's turn. So you can build up counters on this quite quickly, I feel.
And all those dual lands that I mentioned, that whole cycle,
Yes, they crime.
Yeah, 1, they crime. 2, they're deserts. So they don't just fix your land, they also synergize with 2 different mechanics in the set that are relevant. So bear that in mind, because there's a lot of cards that care about deserts. There's I think the removal spell, is it called Desert's Dew? I think
is that the one where it's like -2/-2 and then an additional -1/-1 for each desert?
Yeah, right. It is. Yeah, Desert's Dew. Yeah, this just seems like it's going to be good removal. This reminds me of the one from Dominaria that, again, it was -2/-2, but you can kick it to sack a creature to make it bigger. Anyway,
yeah.
Just a 2-mana instant -2/-2 is going to do you in pretty good stead for a lot of like utility creatures anyway, and you should probably just always be running this. But if you also have deserts, then this does work.
Yeah, I feel that the desert deck is probably going to do a lot more work than the cave deck did in Ixalan.
I think so.
Which seemed like something that I would have loved to have played, but you just never had faith in it coming together enough to draft it.
Well, and a lot of like people really tried to solve the format for caves, and just, I mean, a couple of people made it work, but it's like, well, I'm not a world champion Magic player, so I'm not. I feel like I'm not quite at that same level. I will say 2 seems to be a really relevant number of power and toughness, or of toughness, I suppose, for your removal count in this. There's a lot of X1s and there's a lot of X2s.
And speaking on deserts, there's in a similar way, because you mentioned caves in LCI, I think the payoffs are bigger here, but there's a similar sort of cycle of cards where there's a green card that lets you look for a basic or desert, and then you put that in your hand, and it gets bigger depending on how many deserts you have. There's had the deputy.
Yeah, the silver deputy.
Yep.
The equivalent of, I don't know, it's this guy.
Campus guide, I think, is the...
Or skittering surveyor.
Yeah.
One of those.
This is the one that puts it on top of the library, but still, it's basic or desert. I had Map the Frontier, which is a 4-mana sorcery. Reminds me of Circuitous Route, I think, is the one that did Gates. And this is, you look for 2 basic lands and or deserts, and you put them into play. So yeah, basically anything that will search for basics from this set will generally also search for deserts. And how many did you end up drafting? I only picked up 1
I think
of the colored ones. Yeah, you ended up with 3 of them?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which felt really nice.
Because I don't know that... It's not like a rule that there's 1 in every booster, but there's a lot going around the table.
Well, they're at the common slot, and now it's been a long day.
Yeah.
The play boosters have fewer commons.
Yes.
So you're going to see a little fewer of them than you would, like, you remember, like, the Gates deck. It was just, like, lousy with Gates and Clue Stones and stuff like that, right? Because they're at the common slot. And so you have fewer commons, so you're less likely to see them. Do you think they're a high take? Like, do you think you prioritize them in the draft?
I'm kind of tempted to. Like, I think that this format lends itself to examining the pack for mythics. If you fail to find a mythic, take a dual desert.
It's probably not a bad idea.
Stay open.
Yeah, and then take removal, right? Because your opponents are going to be taking mythic creatures that are going to be absolute haymakers. Like, I want to play this format, but I'm tempted to think of like a variation of it where you open your pack and remove the wanted and big news cards or breaking news cards and play with the actual set cards. Because I think this set, like, I have a lot of faith in it, and it looks really interesting mechanically. But I think those 2 supplementary groups of cards add so much power that they make a synergistic deck using the set's mechanics disadvantaged.
I've wondered this for a while about, like, I'm not naive enough to think that they don't test for this, but I wonder if the initial planning of the set is sort of like, I wonder if it is like, we have a balanced thing, and then, and we're adding a bonus sheet? Okay, so now we have our balanced thing, but let's now test how the bonus sheet interacts with it and make sure that that's all good. But I do kind of want to see, like, okay, but what is, like, vanilla Outlaws of Thunder Junction? What is vanilla Wilds of Eldraine without
I absolutely don't think you're wrong in that the set was tested with those supplementary sets in it, but they add a lot of haymakers.
A lot of power.
Like a lot of haymakers that I think warp the format away from what I I personally enjoy Magic when it's like, you know, you have a lot of synergistic uncommons and commons that are doing the balance of work. And when you build one of those decks and it just gets absolutely dumpstered because your opponent goes like, you know, mythic, mythic, mythic. I mean, it encourages you to play in a certain way.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of, you know, primarily commons, non-commons, Kathleen, you were talking about.
Yes. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
You were talking about your deck. You had one of the other sort of archetypes is second spells.
Yes, we've had first spells, but what about second spells?
Yeah.
Second spells is really fun. And there's a lot of cheap spells that let you do that, and there's a lot of spells with plot that let you do that, which is really... it feels good and it feels easy, and it feels like the plot gives you the tools to set it up. Even if you don't get second spells all the time, you can get second spells when it's really important.
I should clarify, this is cards that do a thing and then potentially do a second better thing, or creatures that have an ability that do a thing when you cast your second spell in a given turn.
And there's also some creatures in white, and I just didn't see that many of them. I think they're more sort of set up for white-blue, but I didn't feel that blue was particularly open either, which was a good read because you were in blue and so was Graham.
Right.
And so was Wheeler.
Yeah, so there's three other blue players at the table. It was I was in an awkward seat, I think. But my deck was really good. But I really like the white cards. They're like, hey, if you don't do something, then you get a bonus. There's a 2/2 lifelinker for 2 called Prairie Dog that if you don't cast a spell on your turn at your end step, you just put a +1/+1 counter on it.
I'm really curious about these. These feel like Azorius werewolves.
Yeah.
Right? Like when nothing happens, like your werewolves flip, this is the control version of that.
Yeah. This is super cool. So
if you draw go, then you know you aren't behind.
Yeah, I want to read this one aloud, especially if someone's just for listening. Prairie Dog, it's 1 and a white for a 2/2 with lifelink, which is already honestly a very solid card for limited. But yeah, it's at the beginning of your end step. If you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on Prairie Dog. Also, synergizing with itself, it has an inbuilt mana sink, which is for 4 and a white until end of turn. If you would put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you put that many +1 counters on it instead.
Which is
so
very good.
Yeah, so obviously, anything that you have previously plotted that you are now playing on this turn, that is not casting it from your hand. So that works. So and if you're paying for abilities or doing stuff or just holding mana up, there's a lot of ways to not cast a spell from your hand. And I think that's a very, as you mentioned, Cameron, I think that's a very interesting design space to explore. The idea of like, don't do anything.
Yeah, whoever came up with this, give them a raise. I don't know if this is going to pan out from a like play experience perspective yet. Maybe people will look back at this and say, yeah, this sucked. It encouraged really toxic play patterns that we didn't like. But I don't know. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, no, you actually played with it.
I did play with it. And honestly, if I didn't have something to do, it made the sting of not having something to do, not having the right mana, or wanting to sit because I knew I wanted to sit on one of the many things that you can do on your opponent's turn. It made that feel like I wasn't losing so much board presence. There's just a white common called Inventive Wingsmith. I think it's got a very decent body in this format because it's a 2/4 for 3. And 4 was a real stoplight to Wheeler's deck. And Wheeler's deck was bananas.
Cameron had a 2/4 as well. That was a big stop for my deck too.
Yeah, I really do think if I hadn't like flooded out in that second game, I probably would have been able to win it. But it doesn't matter. Hindsight is 50-50. I think this card is good because it lets you sit there and then you have a 2/4 flyer, and there's some flyers, but always White Skies is a really good archetype to be in limited. And it still just sits there and like shuts down a lot of early creatures on turn 3. It's just like, it's not super powerful, but it's like the kind of thing, it's like, hey, you know what? If you can sit there and you want to maybe cast your Holy Cow on your opponent's end step instead of your step, then you have a 2/4 flyer for 3. And you can also, other things that you can cast on their step, you can cast Bovine Intervention, which is a 2 mana instant destroy, and they get an Ox. I think this card's really good.
Yep.
And you can also cast Steer Clear. which is
I hadn't heard about this
These
one.
are all
I have two.
appalling
I have two
names.
of these. I boarded in a second one because there are so many small creatures in Wheeler's deck.
Terrific.
And you think 2 mana to a target attacking or blocking creature. It's not great because they always have to attack, which kind of sucks, right? So Wheeler played Malcolm and then got to make a clue off Malcolm before I could kill him because I had the steer clear in my hand, but I had to wait till he attacked. Which is kind of annoying. But there's things that you can do on your opponent's turn, and they're readily available to you, and I think fairly good.
Yeah, interesting point, something to bear in mind at your pre-release with plot, because you were talking about that. You pay them mana now, and it lets you do stuff on future turns. It should be mentioned also, plotting itself is also not casting a spell from your hand, relevant for Prairie Dog. Putting the thing into
Exile's not casting
into
it.
exile is not casting it, and getting it out of exile is not casting it. So you can do either of those things and still get the bonus.
Well, no, getting it out of exile is casting it, I believe.
But it's not casting it from your hand.
That's
Right,
true.
yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
casting
Sorry.
a spell for the purposes of the blue-red cards that care about.
Yes. Sorry,
Yes.
I should have been more clear.
And it allows you to interact with them with counter magic.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, to be clear. But the interesting thing about plot, now most of the ones that I've seen of plot are sorcery speed. They're either sorceries or creatures. Most. I'm sure there are some instances with plot that I just can't think of off the top of my head because the set is negative a week plus new. But the sort of the rules on plot is you plot it on the turn that you do that, and then on any future turn is when you can cast it for free from exile. So, and that includes literally your opponent's next turn if you happen to have something that, like, because Fibblethip lets you just plot the top card of your library, right? So it's face-up information, but if you happen to plot a creature with flash or an instant or something, you can immediately do that on your opponent's next turn. But generally speaking, you just have to bear in mind that you cannot plot and cast on the same turn with the same creature. But that's a cool one. We talked about crimes a bit already. Turns out that's pretty straightforward to do.
Can I talk one more? Because I feel like I want to talk about the size of creatures and a red uncommon that Wheeler and I are both very hot on.
Oh.
And that you were like, I don't think that you should run this. And I was like, no, I'm going to.
Is this Ferocification?
That card is good because it just sits there, and if you have a lot of little 1/1s or you have a lot of little weenies that aren't going to do anything, maybe they are going to get in because they've got menace, or maybe you really need to do something. Like, I think this card is actually super good if you're playing like an aggressive low to the ground deck.
I admit the Graham of 5 or 6 hours ago was like, well, how good does a do-nothing enchantment have to be?
Well, if you're running 17 creatures, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel that this would have been like probably the most marginal siege in
Tarkir. Right.
Like that seems good. Seems like if you're playing a creature heavy deck.
Yeah.
If you're normally sleeving up 21 creatures and 2 combat tricks.
Yeah, this card is better than I thought based on one match, but I was like, I mean, it doesn't do anything by itself. And then the discussion that you and I were having, because we were talking about your deck, because you opened a breaking news card of the Wrath, Fell the Mighty.
Yes.
Right, which is it wraths every creature with power greater than a creature that you nominate.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned correctly that it doesn't do anything by itself. You need to have a creature to do it, right? And I was sort of like, yeah, but that's also true of Ferocification. It turns out Ferocification just like Fell the Mighty does something once. Ferocification does something every turn.
Well, Fell the Mighty wouldn't have been very good against Wheeler's deck because his creatures weren't actually bigger than mine. And for a lot of it, I actually had the bigger creatures. He just had more of them because he was drawing so many cards. Mm-hmm. So, like, but this would be really good if I was playing against somebody who had lots of, like, 4/4s or something like that. It would have been better against you, I think.
Yes, this correctly stayed in your sideboard.
Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate that you asked me for advice because it turns out I was just very wrong about a couple different things. But yeah,
I'm just bad at making cuts. Mine would have been like a 43 card deck if I hadn't asked for help.
I know that feeling. But yeah, we talked about doing crimes. Turns out that's very easy to do. Lots of things do that. It's great that the deserts enable that to just sort of happen, quote, for free. So that was good. What are the other mechanics in the set? Oh, no.
Plot, crimes,
Yeah.
do nothing,
Well, I mean, we went through a whole thing.
Well, I guess like second spell is like an archetype.
Yeah, second spells.
I should just look at my cards.
Green mechanics are like strength or power 4+.
Oh yeah, there is a slight. I guess do we still call that ferocious? I guess that's what that was.
Pseudo ferocious.
Yeah.
Big.
Saddle. That's it. Mount.
Yeah, saddle. I had a mount that would have been so good, but I never drew it. It was Fortune. And can you imagine saddling up Fortune with a holy cow and blinking it? Or anything else that has like an enter the battlefield trigger, of which I had quite a few.
What's Fortune do?
Fortune Loyal Steed is a 2/4 for 3, and we've already said that's a great stat line in this set.
Good.
And it enters the battlefield, you just scry 2. Great. Whenever Fortune attacks while saddled at the end of combat, exile it and up to one creature that's saddled at this turn, and then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. And it saddles for a single. So for one power is all you need. Obviously, you don't want to saddle it with a mercenary token, but I suppose you could if you're really desperate to scry.
Mm-hmm.
Love this archetype. Love blinking things.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Actually, so you brought up an excellent point. I just realized. Based on something that Serge and I were talking about during the deck build. So you're talking about how good this 2/4 for 3 is. There's this one in the Wingsmith that we already looked at.
Yeah, it just seems very efficient for
how relevant
blocking.
for toughness is.
Yes.
Because, as you just said, the green mechanic, or one of the green mechanics, cares about 4 power. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, to not glut the color space with just easy wins, there's a lot of 3/3s for 3 in green. Ones that often have a way to make themselves bigger. I think it's a centaur that plots, and if you cast it from exile, it gets 2+1/+1 counters, and so it becomes a 5/5. But its plot cost is more expensive. It's 4 mana to do that, but you can just play it as a 3/3 for 3 by itself. There's there's a rare one that I ended up with, but there's the Bristlepack Sentry, which is a 3/3 for 2, but it has Defender, but it can't attack unless you have a bigger creature. Oh, Free Strider Commando. It's in my deck. Is the Centaur Mercenary that I was thinking of. But there's a surprising number of 3/3s for 3. My first pick from the draft, which we never actually saw in game, Free Strider Lookout. 3/3 for 3. Also, it's got reach, which is great. And then whenever you commit a crime, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you can put a land into play from among those 5 cards. Only once per turn.
I mean, that's still so good, though.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a 3/3 with reach, and you can get a land onto, and you're not even milling, because I know some people are like, but my mill.
My stuff.
My stuff, I don't want it in the graveyard. But like...
So yeah, because of the green mechanic caring about 4, they have to make you work a little harder to get to 4, so there's a lot of green creatures with 3 power, so these 4 toughness creatures are even better blockers.
Yeah. And this does seem like there is some sort of like, maybe like you could go like sort of low to the ground and aggressive. Oh, speaking of low to the ground and aggressive, there is a bananas good 1-drop in red.
Oh yeah.
It's Goblin something.
You have it, don't you?
Yes, I'll look it up. I'm actually running both of them. I thought, you know what, I can run a dirty 41 here to get both of these little 1-drop goblins. And Reckless Lackey.
Yeah.
First strike, haste for 1, and it's a 1/2. That's just good.
Yeah.
The 2 means it can block a mercenary token all day. And then you can pay 3 and sacrifice it to draw a card and make a treasure token. That's so good. So if like you do have to use it on if you're chumping for it, you might get a card and a treasure out of it.
And I gotta say, this is something that we sort of called happening and have seen the trend of it occurring, especially over the last couple sets, is more playable 1-drops. Like because of play boosters having fewer commons, there's an impetus to make the commons do more and to have games, actually start on turn 1 instead of land go, hopefully a 2-drop, but, have the games actually sort of like to get people to start playing Magic on the first turn of the game rather than just playing a land and passing. And so we are seeing more and more very playable 1-drops. I'm trying to remember what else. Oh, right. So we mentioned that Saddle exists. You talked about Fortune. I had a pair of these, the Giant Beaver, 4/4 Vigilance for 4. Already very
seems
solid
very
right
powerful.
there. That's already just very good. And then you can saddle for 3, and whenever it attacks while saddled, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that saddled it this turn. So
Yeah, this seems like a great way of powering up something that otherwise wouldn't be able to get through until it can.
Yeah, right. you turn that 3/3 into a 4/4.
Yep.
And then suddenly it punches my little 2/4 out of the way.
Or a 2x and a 1x. And then one of them gets a counter.
Yeah. Which is also a thing that I did. And actually, another one that I just wanted to call out. I didn't get to cast this one, but this one seems very good. Hard Bristle Bandit is one of the cactus people. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1. Plant Rogue, taps for 1 mana of any color, and when you commit a crime, untap it. Again, only once per turn. Most of these, like the Bandit's Hall and this one and the Free Strider Lookout, these are all, you can only do it once per turn, but still, it can be sort of incidental to crime on people, and so getting this like added bonus of sort of, ramping you. You probably have to spend mana to do this, but
well, I mean, like, it does take the edge off playing like a turn 4 desert.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Big time.
Because they enter tapped.
Yep.
But maybe you get a crime bip.
Bip that crime. What other decks did we see? Because Cameron and I were in the match together. Actually, Cameron, you also had a 2/4 now that I think about it. You had your Homerid.
Yeah, the Homerid, that whenever you crime, it mills your opponent for 2?
For 3.
3,
For 3.
Yeah. Deep muck.
Like a little crab.
I expect I will lose many matches of Limited to opponents who have picked up 2 of these.
I mean, I don't wish ill against you, but I hope so. Like, I hope someone does that. They get to get their Deep Muck Desperado mill deck going off.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not Hedron Crab, but it's, I think this has merit.
If you can target them with a mill effect as the crime.
Yeah.
That's basically going infinite. So yeah, Deep Muck Desperado, again, another good blocker. What else did you have? I mean, you had Oko.
Yes.
But I mean, Oko is
I had
very
Karvik, I had Gisa. But then again, I don't think those kinds of decks are going to be that uncommon. I had a lot of things like, I had Tyrant Scorn, which is from the supplementary.
breaking news, yeah.
Yeah, I had Abrupt Decay.
Yeah. Well, that made it around to you.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I opened Abrupt Decay and the Free Strider Lookout, and I was like, I don't know what I want to start with, and I was like, I'm going to take just the green card. Also, it didn't hurt that, like, because again, we do, as you may have seen, this is a lot of very high energy table talk at our camera drafts. Ben was just making no bones about that he opened 2 green mythics and would have to be passing me one of them. So I was like, well, guess I'll just take the mono green card and see what comes downstream.
I mean, I would have taken the mono green card anyhow. You don't know if green black's a big commitment.
Yeah, but
for
I do
like
love
first pick. I would like to point out the flavor text on Abrupt Decay credits somebody named Honest Rutstein, and if we remember old Rutstein from Innistrad, glad to see he's back again.
Yeah, someone in the chat was asking earlier if there's if we have like the trope of the snake oil salesman, and I'm like, well, he's calling himself Honest Rutstein, so that sounds like a snake oil salesman to me.
Yeah, good old Patches.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. What other stuff did we see in the draft round? Who was Ben and Adam was the other pair. I'm trying to remember what.
Ben was green, red, big.
Right, he was playing the big.
And Adam was white, black, but mostly black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the Orzhov attrition strategy. I mean, yeah, it seems to work. There's some decent cards. There's a uncommon, the vampire in Orzhov.
Oh, Bertram Greywater.
No. It's something like Ruthless Lawbringer.
Oh, yes. Okay. She's going like that. Yeah, that's her.
1 white black for a 3/2 vampire assassin. When Ruthless Lawbringer enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target permanent.
So this is similar to there's a card in 1 that was in black. It was black-white as well, but it was like a 4-something, 4-drop. And I am really desperately trying to remember what that card was called. It was... But it was the same thing.
Yeah.
And in 1, it being like a 4-drop, or maybe it was a 5-drop, but it was also in the uncommon slot. It was just too slow, but if you could do it, it was super powerful. Like maybe you sacrifice a might to it and stuff. But seeing it 3 is very attractive to me.
Yeah. This isn't quite Fleshbag Marauder. It's going to be better in a lot of circumstances, but it has the disadvantage that it can't sack itself.
Yeah, rather than getting your worst thing and their worst thing, you're getting your worst thing and their best thing.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Right? It is different Fleshbag Marauder. I think that is good.
Yeah.
I think that is worth sleeving up.
Right, because you cannot choose itself.
It's another creature. I believe Bertram Greywater is also a white-black vampire. So, there he is. Baron. He's a... Well, I wonder what plane he's from.
Clue? He's dressed like the...
I just feel like most of the people coming through the Omen paths are Ravnican at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I joked before, but I think it's not probably that far off to say that there's more people living on Ravnica than there is in, the majority of the rest of the multiverse.
Yeah. There's lots of, really, there's planes that arguably have more advanced technology, like Kaladesh. And Kamigawa.
Yeah.
They look at the Ravnik and they're like, oh, you have subways and coffee. That's so cute for you.
And the smell coming out of your Omen path is really breathtaking. That's a thing.
I think that's technically my headcanon, Cameron, that the whole plane smells like a wet bog.
Yeah. Also, the faint sound of hard bass emanating from the Ravnik and Omen paths.
A couple of the cards that
They can't have jungle because it's only swamps there.
Of course.
Well, it's based on Prague.
A couple of the cards, that's very good.
Or Fonk? I don't know.
Playing recently had some relevant subtypes. So mercenaries there's some synergy with mercenaries. There's a lot of cards that generate mercenary tokens.
Just as a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mercenary token that they all generate all do the same thing, which is that they're a 1/1, and you tap to give another creature +1/+0 as a sorcery. You got the Form a Posse, I think it is, that is...
Yeah, it's red, white, and XX. Make a bunch of mercenaries. I actually boarded that out against Wheeler in favor of another one of those, 2 damage... or spells, just because I was like, this is too slow for a bunch of 1/1s that may not even trade with his stuff. But, the idea being, if you have enough of these mercenaries, there's a card called Hellspur Brute that just has affinity for outlaws, so you could cast a 5/4.
So that's where I was going with that.
5/4 with trample is big.
Yeah. So that's where I was going with that, is that there's a lot of stuff that makes mercenaries and a few things that sort of maybe care a little bit about mercenaries, and generally speaking, so your Homerid was technically a mercenary.
Yeah.
But all the tokens and your deputy also have this tap to pump power ability, which is relevant for the green cares about 4 power mechanic. But then the other sort of big mechanic for the set, we finally remembered, is the outlaws. Which are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. Most of the cards that do this, that care about this, do list the cards on the thing.
Yeah, I will say from trying to put this deck together, mercenaries are not centered in white. Basically, even sort of kind of trying, couldn't pick up a white mercenary, but every creature I had in red was a mercenary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this feels like the Rakdos mechanic.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah, I'm just looking through my deck here, and I've got a mercenary and a rogue and another rogue.
So that's
and that's it. So not a lot of outlaws in green either. Green's got a beaver mount and a human scout and a snake and a varmint and a plant bard and another snake.
I had 8 mercenaries in my deck.
Nice.
Because
mostly in red?
Yes, they were all in red. That was basically every red creature I was running was a mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, one other card I want to shout out.
Or an outlaw, sorry.
Yeah.
This is completely a non sequitur, but the divination in this set...
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
One in a blue... It's 2 in a blue for draw 2 cards. However, if you have crimed this turn, you get it for 1 less.
Do you remember the name of it?
No. James, handle it.
Because you were able to, on turn 3, you were able to play a tapped
desert,
ping me, and then your other 2 mana was just draw 2 cards. That's
it felt great.
That's a good turn 3.
Very powerful.
Yeah, I like that divination a lot.
It felt much more clever than playing Island and casting Divination. Instead,
For 3 mana,
I did the set mechanic, and the effect was largely the same.
But you also got like a powerful land as well, which is nice. But also it opens it up for like later in the game. Maybe you have a combat trick. Maybe you have maybe you have like a removal that you're sitting on, or a flash creature or something like that. And then as a little bonus, if you've got 2 mana left over, well, let's go draw some cards too.
Yep.
Very.
The crime archetype really impressed me, which makes me think it is probably not as good as I feel it is right now. It was easy enough to turn on that the advantages were relevant. I think it is probably one of those situations where later on in a few weeks we'll be looking at this format and wonder, like, is doing a crime always worth a card to trigger kind of marginal bonus on one spell? Or should you be sandbagging your targeting cards? Seize the secrets. Thank you very much, James.
Thanks, James. Yeah, because we talked about this. I talked with Serge about this during the sealed deck build, because he opened, among his many rares, he opened Tiny Bones Joins Up. Right? Which is, this feels like a build around. I don't think it's going to be good in sealed. You could maybe do it in draft, but so it's a single black mana for a legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, any number of target players each discard a card. And then whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target players each mill a card and lose 1 life. So it's 1 mana to do a crime and make your opponent discard a card, right? Is it worth it to run? We determined that no, it was not, in Serge's case anyway, it was not worth it to run just like 1 black mana, trigger crime, and your opponent discards a card. But if you have legendary creatures and can do repeated criming, then potentially this is the kind of thing that could be really good. But I think that one specifically is going to be an interesting debate down the line about, like, is it worth to run this 1 mana enchantment that might not do a lot in your deck just to pop a crime?
Well, I mean, I think there are enough cards like Lazav and Kerovak. Like, Kerovak's at rare, but Lazav's at uncommon.
Really?
And whenever you crime, you just get a +1/+1 counter on him.
I get, what is Lazav doing here? I guess, I mean, honestly...
what is anyone doing here? Right, like, what am I doing here?
So apparently, because we talked about this a little bit, apparently this was before this was a Western set, this was a villain set. That, like, the let's get all the villains together and have a bunch of them do a heist was the initial concept. This is not from Wizards. I'm hearing this, like, I mean, I think it is originally from Wizards, but I'm hearing this like third hand from a friend of a friend. Reading on Twitter, basically, that people were talking about this. And then the Western thing came later, which is why it's like, here's everybody. And also, like, not everyone, some people were clearly going to be like maybe on the special guests, and now they're in the set because things got restructured. And so, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it is a little weird to see Lazav.
Actually, I take it from a story point of view. I take it back. As far as I can tell, the Dimir are thriving in the aftermath of the Phyrexian invasion. They're doing great. So yeah, Lazav's probably just taking a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the right? You mentioned Kerovak, and you were talking about Lazav, and I was going somewhere with that, and now it has escaped me. Yes,
I will point out that the well-known Dimir assassin Atrata is literally just working with, like, the agency's greatest investigator, Alquist Prof. That's probably great for the Dimir.
Yeah, it seems like a big. I mean,
she's got powerful Rosa Diaz. I love this detective, and I'll kill you and everyone else in this room.
The Irene Adler kind of.
Yeah. They've got very good like chemistry together, so I can see why they get along. She prevents him from getting killed because she has common sense and he doesn't. But the point being, like, it's probably fine that the Dimir have access to the highest level of, like, Ravnica's secrets.
I mean, we have to assume also that the greatest detective in Ravnican history is not an idiot, and so probably knows that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that's the source of the chemistry. Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah. Who can know things?
Yeah.
It's an intimacy thing.
They're smooching.
I think we'll touch on the commander decks at a later date when the EDSC has aired, but
I just put them out to look nice.
oh, I know. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
They do look nice. In brief, very powerful. Is there anything else that we want to touch on for the pre-release? I will say there is no, like, you don't get caught out by the. There's not there is no card in the promo pack that you cannot play at your pre-release. So there's no, like, Voja or Voya was in the last set. So it's just your promo.
Love that.
And your arena code. That's it. What else?
I don't know. I think the format seems fun.
It seems
I think
really
it's
fun.
kind of like, I think it's very likely to be fun in the way that I found Mom to be quite Mom to be fun. March of the Machine with all the team up cards and the battles and all the random
Right.
stuff and going around, and everything seemed really powerful and bananas and stuff. I really enjoyed playing that format.
Right now, I'm a little apprehensive. I'm optimistic. I like the mechanics. I like the feel of things. I've seen so many cards in this set that I want to put into play in a limited environment. I am concerned right now that I will get into a Brothers War kind of situation where I will put together what I think is a really interesting deck and then realize that I didn't play around Blightsteel Colossus. You're in this set, right? Like,
Oh yeah, with all the artifacts and stuff.
yeah, where it's just like, I have evolved my board state to a place where I feel like I'm winning. I have crafted an interesting synergistic deck, and I'm going to lose to a Hall of Fame haymaker.
I thought that you were going to say I was going to be like Brothers War, and I'll get pecked to death by little white guys in the skies. All the late flying soldiers that would jump and boost one another.
I mean, yeah, like, you did put together a very cool synergistic looking deck, and I mind-slavered you into Villainous Wealth.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm speaking here from a point of trauma. But
I think you might have been able to come back from the second Villainous Wealth if Graham hadn't grabbed so many of your good cards.
yeah, I mean, that's what Villainous Wealth do.
Yeah, and after playing my Railway Brawler so that all the creatures I stole from Cameron also came in with counters that doubled their power. It was very silly. Though, I did like you bouncing the Sphinx back to your own hand. That was neat.
Yeah, if only that had worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Ward. It's got Ward.
It's got Ward.
Heck, that Sphinx
It's
is
an
really
uncommon.
cool.
It's an uncommon Sphinx with Ward. What's
the
it
name
called?
of it? Something Sphinx?
Something Sphinx.
Something Sphinx. Great. We
Oh,
really
we're-
nailed
I didn't
it.
get the name.
Experts in the format. Yeah, you barely saw it. It's
Yeah,
marauding.
Marauding Sphinx.
It marauded over to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 mana for a 3/5 with Flying Vigilance and Ward 2, and then whenever you commit a crime, Surveil 2.
Oh.
I also love how all the quadrupedal sapient creatures in this set have spurs.
Why the hell does she have spurs? Like, what is she riding?
Well, that's kind of a private question, I guess. I don't know.
Also, this
We
this
don't know what she gets up to.
okay. Look, you know the thing of, like, if a dog wore pants, would it wear it like this or like this,
Yeah.
right? How come the Sphinx only has spurs on the front legs? How is this Sphinx riding a horse
And spurring it.
with its front legs and its
Yeah,
back legs
mush.
are what, just like flapping in
we've
the
seen
wind?
what happens when a quadruped rides a horse or a chocobo, because you can see Red 13 in Final Fantasy VII, and he's kind of like this.
It's so unseemly. It's unbecoming of a
Of a majestic creature.
creature of his stature to be riding a chocobo like that.
I mean, clearly she's riding backwards.
I guess
I mean,
right.
I will say, like,
back saddle.
at the I feel like there's a little bit of, like, people are like, yeah, I'm gonna draw the Western thing, and then, like, maybe people don't necessarily realize what spurs are for or how to use them. Like, I don't think that if you gave me a pair of spurs, even though I know what they're for, if I could correctly install them on some boots.
I'm just imagining now, because it's on a couple different cards, a Snorse. There's a couple cards
Oh,
that
the Snorses.
feature a snake horse.
Yeah.
A snake horse barreling at you, being ridden by a Sphinx ass as the Sphinx is riding it backwards with its front paw spurs.
The Sphinx just
butt
doesn't want to have
forward.
to look at the front end of the Snorse. It's a very deliberate choice that she's
Yeah,
made.
and because they're all from Ravnica, it's pumping hard base, right? Like, I don't know why I've suddenly decided that Ravnicans all listen to hard base, but it's absolutely indelible
We know
right
that,
now.
I mean, we know that from our own experiences that Ravnicans love live music productions.
Yeah, and it's inspired not a little bit by sort of like Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that tracks. Hey, we clearly need to sign off for today. So hopefully some of this was remotely useful for your pre-release this coming weekend. Let us know how you did, and hopefully you enjoyed all the various videos from today, from the pre-launch showcase, because we had a bunch of fun playing with the set. A reminder that you can go to cardkingdom.com. You can get yourself some Outlaws of Thunder Junction. cardkingdom.com/LRR. That tells them that we sent you, which is really important because that tells them that we sent you. That was a bit of a tautology, but there we are.
We have a transactional relationship where we would like you to make transactions with Card Kingdom if you are going to buy cards, because it makes them think that we're worth paying money to.
Pay them so they pay us.
Yeah. Or if you prefer to cut out the middleman and just pay us, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, or you can become a YouTube member on this very channel, as I mentioned, or any of the YouTube channels. It all goes to the same place.
Yeah, our wallets.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening for this week. I've been Graham, joined by Kathleen.
Yeehaw.
And Cameron. James has been here on tech. Heather gets these online. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, partners.